Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Learning from the Pros. Joining me today is Justin Rowe. He is the founder of Impactable. They are a B2B LinkedIn ads agency. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm super pumped, man. This is the first time we've connected. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a while, but this is the first time we're actually meeting first face to face. And I'm like super excited to pick your brain and learn your tips and dive deeper into today's topic. So before we started recording, I was talking with Justin. I was like, oh, what's the angle we want to take with today's show? Where do we want to go with this? And he touched on a lot of the tips he's going to share today are not traditional tips you would hear in terms of improving your LinkedIn ads performance. So the whole angle of today's show is going to be really around 10 unorthodox tips to get better results from your LinkedIn ad campaigns. So Justin, why don't you just start us off with like a quick background on yourself and your experience, and then we can get started with your first tip.
Cool. Kind of a 30-second overview. My original company, I founded a company called LinkedIn lead generation agency. So I kind of cut my teeth on that side. And I kind of grew that agency through self-taught YouTube videos, trying to learn. So very much a lot of the stuff that you're putting out there, I was consuming and trying to learn myself. I grew that agency to about 200 or so clients, and then it was actually acquired. I had a majority buyout and I pivoted. So I still maintain some ownership, but pivoted into Impactable and have been growing that. But through growing my own startup and learning marketing myself, I kind of realized that marketing and multi-channel marketing was something like I was very passionate about. And so now, running a marketing agency and being very passionate about marketing comes hand in hand. But yeah, along the series of tips, like when I'm going to suggest how to optimize or the best tips for LinkedIn ads, sometimes it goes outside of LinkedIn ads because you have to make sure you have this foundation or you introduce this. And then, even without touching LinkedIn ads, if you do some of this other stuff, your campaigns in there will become more optimized. So that's kind of how I got to this point and where I'm coming from with kind of my insights or angles.
Yeah, I'm super excited. By the way, the whole mergers and acquisition, like selfishly, I feel like that could be a whole other show. Like your top 10 tips, like lessons learned going through M&As for sure. Like that's a great topic. So why don't you
Cool.
kick us
Have
off
me
with
back on for
tip
that.
number one? Yeah, let's do it.
Uh, Tip number one is, and it sounds silly because this should be basic, but absolutely harness LinkedIn ads insight tag to the fullness. So install it, make sure you're collecting your retargeting audiences. I can't tell you how many sophisticated companies I've seen running LinkedIn ads, and I look in there and they're just running a lot of cold ads, saturating a small group or trying to attack a big group, and they don't have the LinkedIn ads insights tag installed. They have no opportunity to do retargeting, or they had it installed and they don't have the proper audiences set up. And it's just, to me, that's a really expensive way to run LinkedIn ads. And any platform, you should really be leveraging that pixel. But LinkedIn's pixel has a lot of additional benefits. So really make sure you utilize that to its fullness.
Just to unpack that, so that's as simple as just installing that via Google Tag Manager across your site, make sure it's firing and it's actually counting.
Yeah, that, and then I feel like some of the other platforms, like once you install it, it automatically is collecting. LinkedIn operates a little different. Like you do actually then have to go in and actually set up your 30, 90, or 180-day website retargeting audiences within LinkedIn. Until
Mhm.
those are created, they're not collecting. So if you install the insight tag and then 3 months later you try to set up your audiences, it's not retroactive. Like it's not collecting until you set those up. But if
Yep.
once you're running LinkedIn ads, if you didn't set up like company page visitors as a retargeting audience, those are retroactive. So you can always go back and grab those. But the website visitors, to me, that's some of the most intentful traffic. Like people, you did something to get them all the way there. And so it's a shame to kind of like not be leveraging that and capturing those to do something with them down the road.
Yeah, totally. That's a good. It's a shame. Yeah, you've had that thing installed for 6 months, and then you never went the extra step to actually build the audiences, and now you have to wait. Yeah, that's a good one. What about number two?
So number two, and so yeah, for this second one, we'll step outside of LinkedIn. And one of the best things that I recommend a lot to improve your LinkedIn ads results is actually make sure you have a decent paid search strategy, Google Ads, Bing, or paid listing. That paid search can do wonders because LinkedIn ads, as amazing as the targeting is, The truth is you're starting with an ice cold audience who isn't searching for you. It didn't ask for your solution. There's no indicator that they have a desperate need. You're trying to take them from unaware to aware to building trust to converting and then making sure you're top of mind for when they actually have a need. So the beauty about introducing paid search traffic in the right volume is there's people literally searching for what you do. They're searching for the solution. They're researching the pain points you solve. So if you can supplement and bring that into your ecosystem, LinkedIn ads, again, if you have the insight tag installed and you have your retargeting, you can then retarget and convert. And it's a way shorter sales cycle to step in front of people who are actually in market and then work on building trust and converting versus, literally starting from ice cold, trying to build awareness, trying to convince them there's a problem, convincing them you have the solution and building enough trust to convert. So supplementing and leaning into paid search in a smart way can absolutely be one of the biggest things that help drive the success of your LinkedIn ads. And that's a really great combination.
I'm curious, Justin, what's been your experience around like audience sizes? So maybe somebody hearing this is like, that's such an awesome tip. We are running paid search, or we should be running paid search. But are you just saying, just to unpack it, are you saying that in practice, this would look like somebody creating a retargeting audience with the UTM source of their paid search campaigns to like create a segment just of that, or they're just part of the overall retargeting pool and now you're able to expose them?
So I would say for 90% of people, it's more the second one, that you're
Okay.
getting more high intent in market traffic on your website. The LinkedIn Insight tag picks up on all of your traffic, not just what's sent by LinkedIn. So all of that kind of gets mixed in and helps pull in a bigger audience, but also an audience that includes more in market traffic. I have seen some nice funded startups with like, if you're spending 30, 40, 50, 60,000, or more on paid search, it is very possible that you would then maybe benefit more from a more specific retargeting audience, especially like what I have seen when you're spending at that level is there's core converting, like your bread and butter campaigns. And then there's usually like a decent chunk of exploratory, maybe top of funnel. You have other things that are kind of going. So then if you're sending that much traffic to your website from paid search, you might then even more benefit from saying, hey, these are my core bread and butter, exactly what I do. I want to segment and tap into the UTM, create a retargeting audience, and specifically stay in front of that group and have a dedicated budget that isn't over diluted by all of my website traffic, because that could be beneficial. But for most, it's just about improving your overall website traffic and improving the quality of that traffic that LinkedIn has to work from.
It's such a good reminder because I'm just thinking about so many SaaS companies specifically that are spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on search every single month. And a lot of brands, especially if you're VC backed and you're really investing in search in a big way, you probably have so much traffic on your site that you can take it a step further and filter down by the UTM source and then just create this really, really high intent pool that you can then retarget to with some demo ads or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Tip number 3.
And that is actually, it bleeds into tip number 3. So with paid search, this is going to be the only other paid search one. So it's not like this is going to be, you came here for LinkedIn ads tips and we're all paid search. But really, with your paid search strategy, again, like I think paid search is an absolute foundational layer of most marketing, but I also think it's one of the biggest areas of waste in most organizations. And so really looking at the search terms that you're bidding for and looking at the intent of it. And there's one thing, like a paid search specialist, they can optimize for, cost per click and click-through rate and share of expression or share of impression. But it takes someone on the other side of the fence who intimately knows the organization, what we offer, and what problem we solve, to look at those terms and really judge the intent and quality and think like, is this what we want to step in front of? And then I absolutely think that if you have a high volume of high intent search traffic, you could definitely then segment that out and have a very specific retargeting campaign. Especially like there's different segments, like if they're looking for one of your competitors and you're stepping in front of that, and then you specifically take that segment of traffic and have retargeting ads on LinkedIn, speaking to comparisons and showing, comparison images and whatnot, or case studies around that. But there's so much you can do with paid search. But I feel like I can't just tell people to, do paid search. They really do need to then look at the quality of the intent, really dial into that. And that can have a huge dramatic impact on a lot of the other things you do.
This is such a big one on the search side of things because people confuse all the time. They think because they're bidding on a keyword, that's what they're appearing for. But ultimately, you bid on keywords and you pay for search terms. So you could be bidding on the
Yeah.
keyword, CRM software, and then you could be showing up for something completely random and not related. Especially now with match types getting looser and looser, it's a real concern. We actually recently we brought on a client that's like in the HOA space, and they do like HOA management, and they were bidding on keywords related to HOA. And then you go into the search terms report, and it was like landlord, household, appliances, like just random things. It just didn't make any sense. And in their case, they were using broad match too, which didn't help. But definitely, that's a really important one. Review the intent of your search terms. One other like tactical thing too is just go to Google and actually simulate the search, and then look at the results that pop up, and then just go through them and understand, like, okay, just like you do in SEO, right? Like what's the intent behind the search term, what's the result that's appearing, and then you can kind of make those inferences in that analysis to understand, okay, what are people actually looking for. And then also like the little suggestion box is helpful because then you can also get like further insights into the query and the intent behind the query. To just, but to your point, there's nothing better than somebody that knows the business, knows the buyer, and then you just send them an export of the search terms report and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
would you pay for this? And then just see what they have to say.
Absolutely, because I think there's so much confusion. Like, we could probably have a whole session on search. I'm very passionate about that too, because I feel like I can't do my job successfully as a LinkedIn ads agency because I feel like that's a middle of the funnel like hero, but I need other stuff in place. But you're right, like you don't have to be a paid search expert if you're on the other side and you're like on the receiving end. Get like the thing I would have in front of me, like either weekly or monthly, is give me a breakdown of my cost by search term and let me look at it and logically think if this makes sense. Because the information I give a paid search agency, what they set up, and then to your point, what actually gets paid for and comes out the other side, like there can be, it's like a game of telephone sometimes. But if someone on the org side looks, they should be able to logically decide and then ship it back to the specialist to optimize, build out the negatives. You don't need to be, I don't need to be a expert on that side, but I should be able to logically agree with the traffic I'm stepping in front of. And that is huge. And then it's also like, that's so informative too. I guess I don't think I have this one, but if then you see your top converting terms, I should be stealing that messaging and transferring it over to like how I talk about my product, how I, what aspects of this are most searched for. That's probably great messaging insights for other things. So I think these things bleed together so well. But there's a huge gap in understanding from like the org leaders and how these channels are running and what they can do to help improve it without, you don't need to jump in there and optimize or figure out bidding structure or mechanics or anything like that to be impactful.
1,000%. Pro tip: ask whoever's running your Google Ads to schedule a search terms report, and they can send you a search terms report from the Google Ads interface on like a weekly cadence, monthly, bi-weekly. Like I think you can even go as low as like hourly. So if you really want to see what's going on, you can get access to those insights. All right. Tip number 4.
So this one, again, less LinkedIn mechanics, but very important. I'm a firm believer, especially now more than ever, in video content. So if you don't have video content in your current LinkedIn ads ecosystem, I believe it is a super, very high impactful format. And then building on that, and I think I might touch on this later, but the very next question is what kind of ads or what kind of videos? I believe thought leadership, subject matter expert, guest posting or guest spots on podcasts, like third-party validation, events, those kind of things like make amazing video content. And then those make amazing LinkedIn ads. And that's a really powerful format that's still underutilized on this platform, especially.
That's such a good tip. So like you go on a podcast, like right now, right? Like you're on this one. So we can send you the MP4 file, and then after you can cut it, and then now you can use it for your LinkedIn ads, and you put it into your ecosystem.
Yeah, and I would put it in retargeting. So like a lot of times, like, the whole purpose of cold is to get on their radar and grab their attention with like what is relevant to what you want to be grabbing their attention for. So not something silly or clever, but a little more straightforward. And then retargeting, I want them to see me as the expert in my space. And you can make the best ad in the world telling people how great you are, but it's way more powerful if someone else acknowledges you as an expert in your space than for you to constantly be acknowledging yourself. So these clips like this is great because you're essentially acknowledging that I must have some expertise to have me on here. And that does
Yeah.
way better than any clever ad I can make for myself. It's huge.
That's such a good point. I'm curious in, in your context, in the agency world, it's like you're in the expertise business, right? So like you demonstrating expertise in advance makes a ton of sense, right? Because that's going to get you more clients, it's going to get you more traction, et cetera. Just for the listeners listening, how do you feel that applies to a product context? Like somebody who has a SaaS, do you think the same also applies in terms of the weight of that?
Yeah, it is a little different because you're right. I'm in the service business, and showing my expertise is a huge advantage. Now, I've seen this executed very very well on the SaaS side, and I guess the way it looks is if you can show third party validation of other smart companies and smart leaders leveraging your software to solve their problems, then other people who have those problems are way more apt to trust you to solve them as well. If you can show that other people are signifying that, so it's less
Yeah.
about you showing your personal expertise, how you personally solve them, but more how, yeah, I guess in that context, it works very similar.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm curious just to dig into you touched on it, but so remarketing, really the focus of the video content is build that expertise through third-party validation. And then for prospecting, how are you thinking about that? You did touch on it briefly.
So in my cold campaigns on LinkedIn, I try to be a little more straightforward. So I don't want it to be vague in the first like 10 seconds or in headline. I want to be very clear, like, we offer LinkedIn ads, we offer B2B marketing solutions like on this platform. And so if that doesn't interest you, I don't necessarily want just click. So if I really just wanted attention, I would make like clever, funny memes about B2B in general. It would get crazy click through rates, but it would give me a hodgepodge of traffic that would over dilute my retargeting. So
Mm-hmm.
my cold ones are a little more dry, a little more promotional, actually, and more like, hey, this is what we do. This is the problem we solve. These are the main things that people hire us for, or the main things they're struggling with that we solve. Either you're overpaying on management fees, or you're under delivering. You have an in-house team that doesn't have LinkedIn ads expertise. You've contracted a broad spectrum marketing agency that isn't giving LinkedIn its due, diligence that it deserves. We can solve that problem. We can do this or this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's way more dry and direct and promotional. And then in retargeting, I have a lot more free range of what I can put in front of them to move the needle on trust and personality and things like that.
I see. It's almost like the way I'm interpreting what you're saying, you're using the message behind the video to act as because the advantage of
Yeah,
LinkedIn is you can filter by the person, right? Like the title or the company or vice versa. But
yeah,
you can't filter for their intent, right? Or their
yeah,
fit or their need.
yeah,
So you're using the message as like this pseudo filter within the filters to resonate with the right people, and then ideally the wrong people would, because then you're just building this like remarketing audience of fluff, right? Like you mentioned, if I wanted to get the most engagement possible, I just run memes and like, I'd crush it. But then now you just
yeah.
have a bunch of people who like memes, but they don't necessarily want like agency services.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the debate that's been going on for a while. Not really debate, but the conversation around like lead gen versus demand gen. And one of the things is like if you tell a savvy marketer, like put me in an in-house position and you tell me that my bonus structure is getting you leads, and you tell me you don't actually care about the quality of the leads, like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to get you the lowest price, trashiest leads you've ever seen in your life. Not because I'm a terrible like marketer, but because that's what I'm incentivized to do. Now, if you tell me that I'm getting paid for quality leads and the close rates of those leads, my tactic changes dramatically. So yeah, I actually
Mm-hmm.
want to create some friction between who sees my ad and who engages with it, because I want those clicks and those engagements to mean something. You're right. The messaging should create some additional friction, should kind of qualify the click and improve the quality of it theoretically.
I just imagine putting together like a collage of like baby pictures or like cute babies with cats and dogs, and then you just run it as a lead magnet. You're like, come check out like cute baby pics or something, and you get like leads for 30 cents or something.
And I learned from this like organically first. My most viral LinkedIn post of all time, I believe, was like me making a meme of the video, me pulling out, not me, but a video of someone opening an office drawer with a cute kitty in there, and it was like my B2B stress relief, whatever. Like, went viral, didn't get a single lead from it. If that was an ad, that traffic quality would have been crap. My most impactful post might get a fraction of the impressions, but I'd get 2 or 3 or 4 inbound requests saying, hey, that was really interesting. Can I get that framework that you listed? And then a week later, hey, I've been trained to implement your framework and I just want to hire you guys to do it. Like, so yeah, I learned really quickly, like popular and attention grabbing doesn't necessarily mean like intent and leads and you should be chasing the right stuff.
Totally. All right. Tip number 5.
So this one is kind of back outside of LinkedIn again, but you need a constant communication with your sales team. And this goes to like the lead quality. So it's one thing to, if you just have a channel partner and you say, okay, I want to get a lower cost per click and I want to get a better click-through rate and I want to get you more leads for a lower price. But there needs to be a close loop with sales to tell you a reality check on the quality of those. Because I've seen so many sales orgs that say, I don't like any of the leads. Like I actually cringe when they dump all these LinkedIn leads on my plate because they're to a cold audience. They're broad targeting, have no intent, and it's a waste of my freaking time to go after these. They're garbage. So I think one of the best things you can do as a LinkedIn either marketing motion or to optimize it is have a consistent reality check with sales on the quality of what that looks like down pipeline versus what you're just seeing in the channel. So less of a channel optimization and more of a big picture down the funnel.
Yep. That's such a necessary point. On tip on that is set up lead alerts. So have a shared Slack channel with alerts. And then if you're using lead forms, it's super straightforward to do with Zapier or something like this. You can push the notifications of those alerts with all the leads that are coming in. And then you can just have your sales team train them, be like, hey, thumbs up emoji on the good ones, thumbs down emoji on the bad ones. And like, that's like something we do example. And it's super easy. And it's like real-time feedback on good, bad, right? And then if you're driving to your website, then you could set up some sort of automation off of that form being submitted. And then it drives into the channel. And now you're getting this real-time feedback.
I like that. And even just like a simple monthly call, to check in and review the actual pipeline, like could help. But yeah, something that's automated and something that gives you real-time feedback. You can make faster pivots and be like, yeah, a week into this, I see everything, like 90% of this is garbage. I could make some optimizations a little faster. Like, yeah, that would be really nice.
Totally. All right. Tip number 6.
This one is a little more routine. You should have like some kind of monthly, quarterly maintenance that you're doing on your ad account. I think most channels should have something like this, but these are things like making sure if you launch new video campaigns that those new video view audiences are created and then connected to the middle of the funnel. You should check to make sure Insights tag is still active and picking up traffic. I've seen way too many times where that goes dark. No one picks it up for months and months because it's not something you routinely check. You should be checking the settings, making sure how much of your ad budget's staying on LinkedIn and what's being shipped off to LinkedIn Audience Network. Make sure conversion tracking events are active and working. I've seen thank you pages change on the website but not get updated in the channel. And unless you have some basic monthly maintenance routine or quarterly, just like you do for your health or for your vehicle, anything like that, like it could easily go awry and no one would notice until, you've lost a lot of money that you shouldn't have lost. So some basic monthly routine. I do have a checklist somewhere that I could share after, or if that gets attached to this, but you should have think about it and have some maintenance that is just boring, but kind of essential to health long-term.
I totally agree with this. When back in the day, when I used to do, I was on Upwork and I was doing white label work for different agencies behind the scenes. I remember I would struggle in the beginning to like manage 15 different Google ad accounts. And then I eventually created a checklist for myself because it's so easy to get into an ad account and then you just kind of get lost. You're like, oh, you start looking at one thing and before you know it, you look up. It's like an hour later, you didn't actually achieve anything, you just got distracted. So I basically put together this checklist and we actually give it away in our Google Ads courses in Google Ads 102. And it was like the daily, weekly, monthly things that I must do. And then I would schedule in my Google Calendar. I'm like, okay, weekly optimization, and I would go in and actually do it. And it's like that. I call it the boring work, but it's like the boring work that if you stack it up over time, it is the work that makes the difference.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say like Upwork. Like I have a lot of respect for anyone who was able to carve out some kind of like book of business or traction on Upwork. I was on there. That's how I got my start before. Like my official revenue was from Upwork until I got my first $500 like website that a college kid built for me to then launch into a more official agency. But It's kind of a brutal place to, to
Oh my
start out
God.
and get
Yeah.
experience. But
Oh man, I
yeah,
feel like
but
we need
it's
to have another
fun.
podcast on like agency stories. Like I literally, yeah, it was like 3 months to make money. I was like cold calling. It was brutal. And then I got an Upwork. I was sending proposals every day. And
Yeah.
eventually, like, yeah, I got a little bit of traction. Then it snowballed. That's actually where I came across my first SaaS client was on Upwork by chance.
Hmm.
And then that led me down a series of paths.
Yeah, that could be a whole series too. My first gig I got on Upwork, I was doing like the moon for this client for $350 a month because I was
Yeah.
just trying to get some experience and
Yeah.
some ratings, and then like I slowly like upped my price. But like that experience was like invaluable. It's like market testing,
Hmm.
see what people actually want. You see like what people are actually posting work for, because I had my idea of how I could help people on LinkedIn, and then I saw what people actually wanted, and that could be a whole thing too.
The number one killer of campaigns is poor expectations. And I learned that early on with these like clients like that. It's like, they're spending $400 a month. They're expecting 160 clients a month. And just like, yeah, yeah. Anyways, tip number
Yeah.
7.
Tip number 7, experiment with organic content and LinkedIn's algorithm. So on LinkedIn specifically, one of the things I love to do is test organically. You can test at high volumes, get stuff out there, see what resonates with your audience, see what actually attracts inbound, meaningful DMs and leads. And that's the stuff that does amazing as ads. And so it can be really expensive to test that as ads first. If you have an organic motion where you're testing and learning and then amplifying, and the best part is you don't have to learn what content works and then like recreate and start from scratch on LinkedIn ad side. You can literally take that best performing post that brought inbound leads that has 50 likes and 30 comments, and you can just sponsor it and become a thought leader ad. So then it becomes this evergreen asset that you can have highly targeted and live forever and continue to, to work in your sleep versus obviously, the organic grind can be
Hmm.
brutal, and anything, especially these days, they're tanking like your reach, and it feels like it's a whole battle to like stay relevant and keep an engaged following. And so figuring out what works organically, testing there, and amplifying on the paid ad side is a really nice combo.
Yeah, 100%. And especially now with thought leader ads, it's even easier, which is great.
Yeah.
Just taking the exact same post from somebody and then boosting it. It's awesome. Uh, all right. Tip number 8.
Use LinkedIn thought leader ads. So kind of goes right into
There we
that.
go.
The LinkedIn thought leader ads are amazing, and you can do text only, text and image. You can do video, mobile video, square, but they're really high performing format. The exact same content posted from a personal profile versus from your company page. The personal profile will beat it every single time, even if it's exactly the same. But posting from personal profile, I feel like it also forces you to change your mindset. Like, would I post this boring corporate crap from my personal profile?
Mm.
No, probably not. Like, I would want it to feel more human. I would want it to feel more natural. I'd want it to feel like something someone would actually want in their feed. So it also forces, I think, like a mindset shift with what you would post from there. But then, yeah, even if you did post boring corporate crap from your personal profile and amplified it with thought leader ads, it would perform better. So it's a great format, and I highly recommend that being part of most orgs' arsenal.
That's a good point. I mean, it's like, are you willing to put your ass on the line in a way? Like, are you willing to, like, you can't hide behind a logo. It's your face,
Yeah.
it's your name. So are you willing to be associated with that? And that's like it's a good frame of mind to have as well, even when you are posting on the company account, like, is this congruent? Like, is this your best thing? Are you willing to push this behind you? I'm curious with the thought leader ads versus the company page posts, when you're saying like, oh, they do better, what specifically are you referring to? Like, what kind of metrics are you seeing doing better?
So judging like conversions and leads gets a little harder because there's not like a direct CTA button that doesn't then hit your website traffic with a clean UTM that you can track. But LinkedIn does pretty good. Like if that ad was exposed to them and then they end up on a thank you page on your website, it connects the dots. And also you can check like on the back end, organic search traffic usually spikes when you go that direction versus the other. But from when I switched, and it's also like the engagements of that are all tracked and then are able to be pulled into retargeting. So building retargeting audiences actually gets a lot faster. And then you got to be careful because you could over dilute your retargeting audience with all those light interactions. So But yeah, when I switched my personal strategy from more single image to thought leader, there was probably a 15 or 20% incremental increase. And I had been trying to leverage like that idea for years. I used to take my best performing posts and I would screenshot them, making sure I
Mm.
got like the likes and the comments in the bottom of the screenshot. And then I would use that as a single image ad on LinkedIn. And so I knew like part of the power is if you launch an ad, and the Facebook advertisers have known this for years, like that they accumulate likes and comments, and the more they accumulate that social proof, the more powerful they get. So even just being able to start with 30 likes and 5 comments or 10 comments or
Hmm.
something, as opposed to starting from scratch, like you're going to be light years ahead of even a better, like objectively better ad that's starting from scratch. And so there's just so many advantages to it that kind of let it beat out the competition in terms of results. And yeah, I don't just say in cost per click and click through rate, because those are
Hmm.
going to be overly inflated because they call like everything a click. But the actual results, conversions, DMs, and things like that that you get from that, I feel very strongly it's a really nice part of like a mix for most.
Yeah, before thought leader ads, you nailed it. Like with the Facebook advertisers, like we would create company pages, and then we would just make a fake company page. We would name it ourselves, like your name, and then you'd put a picture of yourself, and that's kind of like your way of having this
Yeah.
personal level identity at scale with ads. And I saw a couple of people doing the same thing on LinkedIn as well before thought leader ads, so like kind of being creative about it. But now with this format, it's so much
Mhm.
easier. You touched on something, Justin, around like stacking the organic engagements and all that social proof on the ads from the organic engagement. LinkedIn rolled out the account level UTM tracking templates. And in my opinion, one of the best things about that feature is the fact that now you can reuse the same ad across multiple campaigns and the UTM doesn't break anymore because you have to have like a unique UTM string for each individual ad. So if you're using that account level tracking template, like you can reuse the same post across multiple campaigns and then just continue to stack the social proof across all those different entities.
Yeah, and that I love. It's annoying because some companies will tie your hands behind your back and they'll say, no, I want a separate UTM for each of these, and it's like that could be a whole separate conversation too. Like when you choose to create a marketing strategy around what you can track versus choosing a marketing strategy and then figuring out how to best track it, like that's a big just mistake of where you're starting at the starting point. But yeah, I've seen people prioritize that for whatever reason many times.
Yeah, and to give those people solace, if you're one of them listening to this, with the tracking templates that LinkedIn rolled out, they have dynamic parameters. So they can dynamically pull in the campaign name now, they can dynamically pull in the creative ID. So you can get the flexibility of like that nuance, but at scale with that template, which is really cool.
They're coming a long
All
way.
right.
LinkedIn's stepping
Yeah,
up.
honestly, like after like the past year and a half, they've done more than like the previous three combined. So it's a really cool trend. All right, tip number 9.
LinkedIn ad scheduling. I'm a big fan of this. Obviously, I'm a little biased because we developed a tool called Demand Sense. And the first thing we rolled out was I just needed to be able to do what every other ad platform allows me to do. Make sure my ads aren't running, in the middle of the night or when I don't want them to run. Especially if you have smaller budgets, you want to be a little more strategic with when your ads run. I like to, usually run like I'll run like most of the time, like 5 to 2 p.m. I'll have them shut off for the afternoon. I'll have them come back on in the evening. I'll have a different schedule for the weekend sometime. Like I don't run them like Saturday mornings. I love like the weekend afternoons or Sunday evening is still great, but I love to be able to curate. And then the other thing, like LinkedIn has the $10 a day minimum, which, then if you're doing that, like, and you have a smaller budget, then you're kind of limited to how many campaigns you could run. With ad scheduling, not just scheduling the time of ads, but also rotating. I could have one campaign
Mhm.
running Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I got another one running Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So for the same $10 a day, I could run twice as many campaigns or, some mixture of that. And so it just gives a lot of, it's especially helpful for smaller budgets. Maybe some of the bigger budgets, like it won't be as impactful to some degree, except maybe just optimizing where that bulk is getting spent. But I would say
Mhm.
ad scheduling, and again, shameless plug, we have a tool called Demand Sense. If it's less than $100 a month, that's what I would use. But there's also like I think other lightweight tools that do something similar, but they
Yeah,
don't
we'll make
offer
sure
that
to
natively. on
We'll make
LinkedIn.
sure to link it in the show notes for everybody. I'm curious on your experience with LinkedIn ad scheduling, given that it's not a public feature at the moment, and you probably have done a bunch of testing on the agency side. How have you seen the discrepancy of like volume, like with ad scheduling versus not?
So I would say like we're doing some tests, and we've been doing a lot of tests, and we're going to publish those. Some of the cases, like the big one that everyone seems to be worried about, and I get it like from other platforms, is does it disrupt it's pausing and starting like campaigns? Does it disrupt learning phase? Is it better for like an ABM approach? Is it better for like large TAMs? So I would say like the place where maybe ad scheduling is not the most effective is if you have a really big target audience and it's in the cold layer, and you would be probably relying more on LinkedIn's kind of like learning phase to understand what pockets of that they should advertise to. And if you're constantly starting and stopping it every day,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no learning phase, that does seem to be less effective. In retargeting with ABM, with other most of the other layers like middle and bottom of the funnel, ad scheduling seems to be pretty effective. And I would say again, like it's probably if you're spending less than $20,000 or $30,000 a month, I think ad scheduling is even more impactful, because with big budgets, I feel like the budgets, with big budgets, it's kind of less, you need less finesse. But I would say like think about this, like if you have a decent target audience and you're running ads, there's a lot of times that like they start on UTC time, so it's 8 p.m. Eastern, and if you don't have a huge budget, there's a lot of times where you could spend a decent chunk of your budget before 5 or 6 a.m. the next
Most
day.
of the
And
time,
so,
yeah.
yeah. So before the day even starts. So in those cases, again, if you have a massive budget, you're not going to run into that problem. So I would say it's not a volume, because most people, most small normal advertisers are just not able to get their ad dollars ending at the times that they would be most
Mm-hmm.
impactful. And they're just kind of at that mercy. So yeah, you're going to get the same volume. You're just going to get it at a more impactful time for the most part.
That's a good
And
way of
then
framing it. Yeah.
maybe massive budgets would show some like limitation or less, because they're not having a problem getting all their budget out there and having it stay out there all day. They have a different problem, and yeah, maybe they still can optimize it, but more impactful for the smaller budgets, I think, small to medium.
Yeah, and one tip for all the poor folk or resource constrained people
Yes.
listening to this is you could, it is more work, but you could just use like the bulk import feature from LinkedIn and then just like set a cadence for yourself to just go in and like bulk pause and then bulk restart and like that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a workaround if you can't afford something.
I was doing it manually for a while, like testing before we had this. And I'm like, I'm going to turn it off at night. I'm going to turn it on when I wake up in the morning, and I'm going to like turn it off at different times. Or yeah, do something like you said with the bulk import. But yeah, having it on an automated schedule is kind of nice.
Totally. All right, the 10th and final tip, Justin.
So this one's a little more hacker vibes, and hopefully LinkedIn doesn't. Well, actually, I won't talk about the automation side of this, but you can infer what other things you can do with this. So one of the things I like to do, because I'm testing with organic, I'm amplifying with thought leader ads. Sales Navigator has a filter that you can make, because one of the things is I'm not getting, not all the traffic's making it to your website, not all of it's making it to your company page where it's pixeled and retargeted. A lot of it's checking your personal profile out. And what are you going to do with that? You have all these profile viewers. You can either manually go through that, see if there's ICP fits, and then reach out, try to figure out some cadence. So what I've done is two things: Sales Navigator search group that says if they've recently viewed my profile, they're a second and third connection, so they're not connected to me, and they meet my ICP criteria. So I set company size and seniority level and things like that. So ICP fit people who have viewed my profile that I'm not connected to, I simply send connection requests and a simple introduction message when they accept, about 60% connection acceptance rate. And I'm not cold pitching them with a 15 message, spam. It's usually, hey, I saw you checked out my profile and I thought we'd connect. If you ever have any questions about LinkedIn ads or want to talk about B2B marketing, just let me know. And here's the link to the resources that people are usually asking me for. And that's it. Like, just introduce myself. They already know who I am because they already checked me out, and I'm delivering value, and then that's it. And if they click into those and then they find their way on my website, they're getting roped into my actual retargeting. Or a lot of times there might be follow-up questions, clarity. Do you work with this company? Have you experience with this? And so that works really well. So I would say, yeah, getting the most out of your motion, by either, we could go down website visitor identification, but I think the LinkedIn profile viewers and optimizing that flow is worthwhile, especially if you're using that combination I mentioned earlier.
That's so fire. Yeah, I'm not doing that, so I'm not, I'm definitely gonna implement that. That's awesome. So I'm curious if you tested like no message versus having just sending a connection request.
So, and again, the original agency that I founded and was acquired was a LinkedIn automated lead generation agency.
Mm.
So I've used a dozen different tools, Expandy and Salesflow and Skylead and all these different things. So yeah, I would say, especially if they viewed your profile, I don't have a connection request message. My poker experience tells me to do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So, hey, Sam, I saw you. It actually looks less human these days than just sending nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I send no connection request message. I just asked to request. And then, yeah, it's a very kind of informal. I don't even personalize, even though I can personalize my next message. It's just like, hey, and it sounds more formal. And yeah, you could use something really lightweight like Phantom Buster to automate both of those. It checks the sales nav search, refreshes it, and then you can have a little flow. You don't have to worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. It shows you the stats. But
That's
yeah, that's a
awesome.
nice little flow. You can check it out.
All right, so many gems. Let's do a quick recap here for everybody watching at home. So, tip number one was to harness the LinkedIn Ads Insight tag. Make sure that it's actually installed, and then go the second step. This is such an important tip, that you actually built your website retargeting audiences, because if not, you're going to be SOL. Second one was to have a decent paid search strategy that you can leverage to drive more high intent traffic into your overall retargeting ecosystem. If you have the luxury of size, then for sure you could take it a step further and experiment with creating a remarketing audience based on your UTM structure. But it's not necessary. Like, even just driving more high intent visitors into your ecosystem is going to result in good things. Tip number three was to review the intent of your search terms, because at the end of the day, you bid on keywords and you pay for search terms. So make sure you're showing up for the right stuff, and have somebody in your company, ideally in sales, that knows your ICP, knows the problems, and ask them, hey, would you pay for this? Tip number four was to leverage video content inside of your ecosystem. So Justin gave some good tips here. He said, for cold audiences, try to really leverage promotional type posts that really speak to what you do, and only somebody who's interested or who could potentially be a good fit would respond to it. So you don't build your remarketing audience with fluff. And then for your remarketing audience, make sure to leverage third party content that like positions yourself or your product as the go-to solution for the thing that you do. Tip number five was to have a constant communication with your sales team. Always check in. We talked about lead alerts is like a good in between, but also make sure you have that face to face. Tip number six was to have a monthly and quarterly maintenance plan. So Justin mentioned a checklist. You can put together a checklist for yourself and make sure you're actually going through the things and the motions to make sure you're successful. Tip number seven was to experiment with organic content. And then if it works organically, you can now guarantee distribution and scale it with paid. And then tip number eight was to use LinkedIn thought leader ads. Make sure that you're actually putting yourself in your own shoes and saying, hey, would I be willing to promote this thing? And if the answer is yes, then great, go ahead and do so. And then tip number nine was to leverage LinkedIn ad scheduling. So if you need a tool, Justin has a tool, Demand Sense, that you guys can check out. If not, you can do it the resourceful way and just do the LinkedIn bulk import feature, or just set a reminder for yourself and just go in and make it happen. And finally, tip number 10 was to leverage Sales Navigator to maximize your organic reach. Justin, this was awesome. I just want to close out with one last thing. You mentioned something on LinkedIn that I thought was so insightful that it would be like perfect at the end of this episode with, which is, you said LinkedIn is very much like SEO. I want to just like give some parting wisdom on that phrase.
Yeah, the thing I kind of realized over time, and again, because I came up through Upwork and then I came through lead gen, is I constantly realized that most organizations experience and experiments with marketing is usually starts with paid search and SEO. Now, SEO is very different than paid search, because SEO is something that takes time to build momentum and then it pays dividends down the road. Paid search is very transactional usually. Facebook ads, people are looking for more usually transactional. Then they move to like email, which is kind of transactional. And then they get to LinkedIn ads. That's usually when they come to LinkedIn ads, that's the order. And they're thinking that it's going to be like paid search. It's going to be like Facebook leads. It's going to be like email. So they're wanting and thinking that this is going to be transactional. And my whole point is it's actually way more like SEO, where you're going to build and test with organic, you're going to amplify with ads, you're going to take whatever you've done in other areas and convert. And as you build up your marketing ecosystem, LinkedIn ads is going to build more and more momentum and more efficiency based on everything else you're doing, versus it being this transactional in a silo channel, like maybe some of the other ones you might be expecting. And so to have that long-term momentum building mentality is going to set you up for a lot more success than if you approach it maybe as a silo transactional channel that many people think and feel that it might be.
Totally. Justin, thanks so much for being here. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. If you search for Justin Rowe, ROWE, I'm usually one of the first ones that pop up. Impactable.com is our LinkedIn ads agency. And then I also have a YouTube channel with like 400 plus videos. There's a LinkedIn Ads 101 playlist that is pretty much like a $200, $300 how-to series, but it's free. So check that out if you want like actionable how-to screen share videos. Yeah, those are the 3 best places to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Justin. And thank you everybody for watching. If you're not subscribed already, be sure to do so, and we'll see you in the next episode.